Hi, welcome to Shakespeare Month, Month 3, February 2018. I'm really excited to share the play with you this month. It is The Tragedy of Coriolanus, which is kind of a lesser known later Shakespeare play, but it is one of my very favorites. It's been one of my favorite plays for a couple of years now, ever since I have been aware of it and gotten around to studying it. So I really hope you enjoy learning about this play, and I'm excited to see what you get out of it. So I'll do a plot summary and my thoughts, what kind of sticks out to me about this play, and I do want to let everyone know that there's only one version of this to watch, which I love this version. It is the 2011 film, which is available on Amazon Video for rental for $1.99, so it's really cheap. You could also maybe find it at your local library to check out. There was a great stage version that was filmed and broadcast in cinemas, but that's not available on DVD. So if it does become available, I'll let everyone know, because I also love that version. But this 2011 film version is incredible, so I'll link to that below. And I will just dive right into the plot. So, Coriolanus, Caius Marcius Coriolanus is the character's full name, is a warrior in Rome. He's built to be a warrior. He's got, 25 scars on his body from all his battles that he's fought for Rome, and that's just, he's a perfect, fearsome warrior. And in the beginning of the play, we see this mob of mutinous citizens. They're talking about some corn shortage, that everyone's going to starve. So it's very political at the beginning, and they're talking about how Coriolanus is an enemy of Rome, and a public figure, Menenius, who's a friend to Coriolanus. I think he's a politician. He comes out and tries to calm this crowd, which doesn't work. And then Coriolanus comes out and he really lays into them. And he shows right away his disdain for the common population of Rome. So right here you see he doesn't hide his disdain for the ordinary people. And this is going to be an important part of the play. And I actually want to read a couple lines of his monologue from the beginning of this play. I think it's important enough that I want to point it out here. So he's talking to the citizens, and he says, "He that will give good words to thee will flatter beneath abhorring. What would you have, you curs, that like nor peace nor war? The one affrights you, the other makes you proud. He that trusts to you where he should find you lions finds you hares, where foxes geese. You are no surer no, then this is coal of fire upon the ice, or hailstone in the sun. Your virtue is to make him worthy whose offense subdues him, and curse that justice did it. Who deserves greatness deserves your hate." And a little later he says, "With every minute you do change a mind, and call him noble that was now your hate, him vile that was your garland. What's the matter that in these several places of the city you cry against the noble senate, who under the gods keep you in awe, which else would feed on one another?" So he's talking about how he hates them because they change their minds, they're cowards, you can't trust them, and to me it's really about the kind of the mob mentality, the popular opinion that's so changeable, that's easily manipulated, which I think is really relevant today, and it really just sets up, he's not pretending. He's from the noble class, the military and the politicians, and he's not pretending to like the common people. It seems very classist, and I've been thinking about this. I like to think of it also as maybe the difference between your higher and lower nature, that your lower nature is the one that's changeable, easily manipulated, like all those qualities, and then your higher nature is, that has the right to govern and to kind of guide you to tell you what you should be doing. So I don't know if this was intended, but that's just come to me since the last time I watched the play, is this, I'm taking this kind of battle between the nobility and the common people as a battle between our higher and lower natures within ourselves. So Coriolanus is not on friendly terms with the common people. They don't like him, and he doesn't like them. Then at the beginning of the play, there is a battle with Coriolanus's greatest enemy, Aufidius, who's a Volsci. So these are the other people that'll be in the play. There's a fearsome battle, and basically Coriolanus takes this city by himself, the city of Coriolis. So he comes back a hero, and they give him the name Coriolanus to tag onto his Caius Marcius. So he's done so well. His friends and his mother, they encourage him to stand for a political place, for a consulship, which he doesn't want to play political games. He's a warrior. He doesn't want to pretend to, flatter people what you need to do to be in politics, but he does. And a big reason for this is we need to talk about the other characters in the play before I go further into the plot. His mother, Volumnia, is, as you can tell from the name, Volumnius, she's a very important figure in his life. She's very, to me, very masculine. She and Coriolanus are all about honor, and she was happy to send him off to war when he was a child, because even if he died, his honor would, she says, his good report would be my son if he died, that she would rather have him be honorable than be alive. So they have this really strong thread in both of them, and she is pretty much the boss. So there's her. There is Coriolanus' wife, Virgilia, who is not really in the play that much. What he says of her when he comes back from war, he calls her, "Oh, my gracious silence," which I think is really beautiful. So she's much different than Volumnia and is kind of in the background, but she's more emotional. She cries. She cares if he, dies. She doesn't want to hear about, all his wounds that he's getting in these wars. Whereas his mother is just all about his honor and, his achievements. So once everyone convinces Coriolanus to stand for a consulship, the nobles approve him, and then he has to get the will of the common people. He has to get their voices. So what you're supposed to do is go out to the crowd of common people and ask them for their voices. And he convinces them to give them their voices. He doesn't want to, as is a custom, show them his wounds and talk about the things, like the great things that he's done. The thing about him is he just does what he does. He doesn't want to talk about it. He's very proud, but he doesn't want to hear people praise him. He doesn't need the praise. He's doing it because it's his duty, and he's proud to do it. So he doesn't want to share himself with anyone, really. But this doesn't sit well with the common people. And although they do give him their voices and say, yes, we approve you to be our consul, there are these two tribunes who are these slimy politicians who are they're the representatives of the common people. And once Coriolanus talks to them and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you can be the consul, these two tribunes, they manipulate the crowd of people and say, he was mocking you. I can't believe you're going to let him have this place. And so they change their mind. There's kind of like a riot where they want to take back that he can have this political position. And again, he can't control his temper. He lays into them again, and then chaos breaks out. And then it's going to be decided if he'll be killed or banished. So at this point, his his mom and the people around him are telling him, like, you have to calm down. You need to be milder. Like, you are too absolute, is what his mother says, I think. So it turns out he can't do that, and they exile him. They call for banishment. So now that he's banished from Rome, Coriolanus goes to his mortal enemy, Aufidius, who he had almost killed in that battle of Coriolanus, but they didn't get a chance to finish the fight either way. But they hate each other, but they respect each other. Like, Coriolanus says, if I weren't me, the only other person I would wish to be is him. And so he goes to Aufidius, his enemy, and says, Rome, they burned me. I want to join you, and we're going to go to war on Rome. So he's completely out for revenge. So back in Rome, of course, his mother and his wife are very upset that he's been exiled. They go to the tribunes and tell them they're going to be sorry. And his friend Menenius he knows something bad is going to happen. So eventually, Coriolanus and Aufidius, they're marching towards Rome. They're going to go to war on his old city or country. However, I don't know how how this place is. How big of a place we're talking in this play. But as they're advancing on Rome, his old army, buddies come, they try to reason with him. He sends them away. Menenius, his friend, he sends them away. And then his mother and his wife come to plead with him to make peace and to not wage war on Rome. And that's basically the climax of the play. He does listen to his mother, brokers peace, and then when he goes back to Aufidius, he's counted as a traitor and is killed. So that's the plot. I don't know if this makes sense if you're not seeing it, but hopefully it helps when you watch it. And the thing about Aufidius is so you'll see how they talk about each other, how much they hate each other but respect each other, and then when they come together, Aufidius starts to see that even though they should be equal, that all his men they're really kind of holding Coriolanus up higher than him. So he's got this jealousy working in his mind. And then when Coriolanus brokers that peace treaty, he counts him as a traitor, kills him, and then regrets it because he's killed such a noble, someone that he knew was like such a noble compliment, I guess, even though they were enemies. So that's the basic plot. I'm just going to give some random thoughts. This play has some of my favorite Shakespearean insults. It's got so many lines that I love and so many kind of fascinating... It's a really fascinating character study because he's so noble, but he's so arrogant, and when his mother says, "You are too absolute," or maybe it's Menenius, but it's that he's not willing to change to make himself more palatable to more people. And everyone else is saying, it's not that big of a deal, like, just tone it down a little. And he's saying, you would have me betray my entire selfhood to change. So I am going to just tell you some lines that I really like that stood out to me the last time I watched this play. My favorite Shakespearean insult ever is when he's talking to the crowd and he says, "Go, get you home, you fragments." It's just you're not even a whole anything. I love that line. And then when he is being persuaded to stand for this political position, he says, "I'd rather be their servant in my way than sway with them in theirs." And it just shows how he's very single-minded, and he wants to be true to what he knows his service is. And he sees that all this, everyone else is changeable, and he doesn't want to kind of ride that wave. He wants to stay true to himself and to what he knows is his service and kind of what he's meant, his place in Rome. And then when they're telling him to tone it down so that he might not get banished or killed, he says, "Would you have me false to my nature? Rather say, I pray the man I am." That just asking him to change his temperament a little bit is so abhorrent to him. And then in that same scene he says, "Must I with base tongue give my noble heart a lie that it must bear?" So he just cannot compromise to appeal to the people. It's just, he can't do it. And then when he's banished, and Volumnia, his mother, comes to tell off the tribunes, the slimy politicians. Her friend Menenius says, come have dinner with me. He's trying to get her away from yelling at them, basically, and she says, "Anger's my meat. I sup on myself, and so shall starve with feeding." And I think that's a brilliant line about anger. Just amazing. And then at the very end, when Coriolanus knows that Aufidius is going to kill him, he lets him have it, and he starts calling him boy, and really diminishing him and telling him, everything that he's done, how dare this other person kind of call him a traitor. And then a line that I really love towards the end of that play is he says, "Thou hast made my heart too great for what contains it." And I just love that. So those are just some of the things that jumped out at me the last time I watched this, but I love this play so much. And I'll tell you, this version came out in 2011. I think I watched it in 2012, and just from an observational standpoint, not just as objective as I can be, I was familiar with this play during the 2012 election, and I knew that Mitt Romney should have been familiar with this play because he had kind of some of the same downfalls as Coriolanus. He would not share himself with the people in a way that appeased them. He was just closed off in a sense. And there's a part in Coriolanus where he's going to the people and getting their voices so he can be consul. You're supposed to show them your battle scars, and he doesn't want to do that. And it's like you're just kind of parading yourself for other people to approve of you, and also he doesn't really want to explain himself. He doesn't want to hear good things said about him. He's like, I just did it. I did it. My actions should speak for themselves, And I just got a sense during that election that Mitt Romney should have been familiar with this play. That's just my theatrical observation of this situation. But anyone in public office should really study this play. It's so interesting, those dynamics. But at the time, I was thinking that. And I just have really never stopped thinking about this play since I first saw this version that I'm recommending in 2012. It's become one of my favorite plays. It's because he's arrogant and you can not like him, but he also is so true to himself. Obviously to a fault, that's the tragedy, but I'm becoming ineloquent thinking about it, but to me it's really fascinating. And there's a lot in here. You can look at obviously the mean, he's got a lot of anger issues. You can look at that. You can look at this, battle between your true self and the self you have to share with the world, and how much you want to compromise that. That's definitely in there. Also, he's made for one thing and is trying to be made to do another. So he was a great warrior. He's not a politician, and they try to make him that something he's not, and that leads to tragedy. And then also, he's got this just streak of vengeance. When they banish him, it's like, this is also an amazing line that you'll see in the film, and he comes back with, "I banish you," to the masses. But of course, much more dramatically than I just said that there. So it's very, and then Volumnia, his mother, is an amazing character. She's really pulling the strings and is a force to be reckoned with. And the dynamic between her and his wife is really interesting. She's so meek and kind of in the shadows, but she obviously is this, he calls her, "Oh, my gracious silence." It's like she gives him this, what he needs, because everyone else is demanding something of him. And I think with her, maybe he has this respite from the rest of the world, certainly from his mother, who still is very much influencing his life when he's a celebrated war hero, major adult. And all the political, the manipulation of the crowds and the tribunes, the slimy politicians trying to manipulate everything, of course, is an evergreen thing to think about and study. And I think, to me, the tragedy is that he was so good, but he just was, like this line I keep repeating, he was too absolute. And he wouldn't yield, he would just snap. So that's one of the major things. I'm really interested to see what everyone, especially those of you who have never had any exposure to this play, I don't even know if I'd heard of it before this movie version came out. So I'm really interested to see what you think. And one thing that's interesting that I've heard pointed up is this play is very physical. His mother talks about all the scars he has on his body, and there's talk of blood, and it's very physical. And even when he meets Aufidius, his enemy, to say, "I want to join forces with you," Aufidius says, "Let me twine my arms around thy body." And it's like, it's just there's a lot of physical description, which I'm not really sure what the point of that is, but it's worth pointing up. Others have pointed it up that I've seen talking about this play. So it is interesting. This is so much about his nature and his spirit and his personality, but then there's a real physical dimension to this as well. So that's my general thoughts. I may do a follow-up on this video because I'll probably be thinking about this play throughout this month as well, and I might find something. There's always more to find. I might be, the things I've taken from this play might be 5% of it. There's so much. There's so many great lines. Much more interesting, I think, even than "To thine own self be true" from Hamlet. But the version that I'm recommending, it's set in modern times. It's kind of got a Gulf War vibe to the war. It's a little violent. There's, they have guns in it. So they do show the battle where he takes Coriolanus, and they'll show some stuff. It's a little bit violent during those parts, but it's directed by and starring Ralph Fiennes, and I think he's amazing in it. He definitely has the arrogant part of the character down. And the other version I saw, that was a stage version with Tom Hiddleston, who's a really lovely British actor. I didn't think he could pull off the part, frankly, because he's very warm, and his Coriolanus was warmer but it still worked, and it was really interesting to see the contrast of how each of those actors played that character. But I do really love this version with Ralph Fiennes and the great Vanessa Redgrave. So I hope you enjoy it. I know this has run on a little long, but please enjoy. And also there's a message board on the Heart Center website, so that will be probably the best place to share thoughts and questions and anything that you want to talk about or point up as you're watching the plays. And you're welcome to read them if you want, but we're just trying to make this easy. I'm curious to know if the modern setting makes the language easier or harder to understand. I think it's great, but sometimes in a play it's more, it's said in that more loud, theatrical, a little slower tone. So I'll be interested to see what people think of that. And I think that's it for now. Stay tuned. There may be a follow-up video of more thoughts on this play. I hope you enjoy, and let me know what you think. Bye.